Albuquerque Journal sports writer Jeff Grammer. Great to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah. So last few years we've had you come in, talk Lobo basketball. We definitely want to get a progress report in a minute, but there have been some other things going on in the athletics department that I want to get to, specifically the new AD, Ryan Berryman. He obviously took over for Fernando Lovo, the more experienced athletic director who left for greener pastures, a little bit more green in his paychecks.
Sure.
How's it been with this transition to Berryman?
It's been really interesting. I would tell you that he was a part of Fernando Lovo's success. He was a part of Eddie Nunez, the athletic director before Fernando. Ryan was a part of his success as well. He was a pretty high-ranking, cabinet level kind of position guy within the department there that was a big part of their success and really popular within the administration, both on main campus and on South Campus, where athletics is. And a former student regent, he knows everybody, and everybody loved Ryan Berryman. The biggest flaw on his resume, I would say, that led people to sort of maybe think, okay, maybe he's not quite ready, is both age. He's 32 years old when this all started, and he also hasn't really been the guy. He might have been in the room when deals got done, but he was never the guy that really got the fundraising done, that closed the deal. And those are things I asked about when he was hired. But by the same token, Fernando Lovo was hired 13 months prior and had never been a primary role in his job, had never been fundraising either. Okay. So he had been in the room. So it can be done, but at a place like New Mexico, you are so reliant on fundraising that we still need to see from Ryan Berryman, a very popular pick for the job. We still need to see that the fundraising can be maintained.
Any indication that that's going to happen?
Well, I would tell you that the guy who I thought one of two internal candidates would get the job, either Ryan or Jalen Dominguez. Jalen Dominguez has been the longtime chief revenue officer and Lobo Club executive director. He is the guy behind the fundraising. He is the guy that has relationships with every top donor at UNM. He is the guy that had a lot of support from the donors to get the job. Those two guys get along great. They also both wanted the same position. So they end up going with Ryan. We will see if Jalen remains in that position, which he is in that position right now. I'm not breaking any news that Jalen is leaving, but he also has to now kind of reconsider some things. I was going for this job. I didn't get it. A young guy who I really like got the job. Do I maybe explore other options? I do think that that's openly on the table. Sure. I think people understand that he has to explore some other things. I would tell you that Ryan Berryman's priorities right now, maybe the top priority is to build the leadership team around him, because he has to not only fill his position. He got bumped up. He was the one of the deputy athletic directors, so he has to fill that hole. He also has to make sure to either try as best he can to keep Jalen on board or explore that position. He also has to fill a Casey Byers left 2 weeks ago to follow Fernando Lovo to Colorado. Casey Byers was the guy who was behind a lot of the social media and video presentation, the storytelling that UNM did this past year, primarily for football, which a lot of people loved seeing Jason Eck and this story. Jason Eck loving this community and being such a good part of this community, I think a lot of that had to do with the storytelling that UNM did. They did a really good job for that, and it was a Casey Byers who now left. So Ryan's primary function right now is keep things going good, because they are going pretty well overall. But he also has to start filling some positions around him pretty quick.
Sure. A position above him that's going to be filled soon as the new UNM president.
Yep.
Will that have any impact on his position?
It could. I mean, it absolutely could. A president can come in and make decisions. He's a vice president for athletics. It was about 5 years ago, I want to say, 6 years ago maybe, that used to be a non-vice president position within UNM, and then they created. They bumped Eddie Nunez up from just the athletic director to vice president for athletics. So it is now a vice president and does work with the president, obviously. So yeah, that could be an interesting hire. There's a lot of concern among Lobo fans, I think, that candidates that are out there right now, we're looking at their names. This person never had an athletics background. This person has Georgia on their resume. This person has Purdue. Those are at least big conference schools. Doesn't mean they ever did anything with athletics. It doesn't mean that people from smaller schools didn't have anything or did not have anything to do with athletics. I would tell you that every athletics director or every university president in the country right now understands the importance of the visibility of athletics and the fundraising mechanism that athletics brings. I would be shocked if the next UNM president doesn't have a pretty, maybe not, I wouldn't say anti-athletics or pro-athletics, but a pretty open mind to the importance of athletics at this university. Because I do think at this level, look, we understand we're talking, billions with a B when they're talking about health sciences and the budget that goes into a university that has a medical school and a hospital and all that kind of stuff. Athletics is just a small fraction of that. But the visibility at this level of UNM athletics is so important that the university's next president is certainly going to have to know that and probably be aware and probably be friendly with athletics, I would say.
Okay, we'll watch for that. Now, you bring up health sciences. Berryman, of course, has history with the university. He was the basketball team manager in 2012. A little bit of controversy when he was appointed by Susana Martinez, ended up casting the deciding vote to restructure the governance of the Health Sciences Center. How's he been received on campus? Has any of that old stuff come up?
Internally, possibly. Nothing that's gotten back to me. I would tell you that he is overall, I think, received very positively because I think he has had an ability to sort of, I guess, cross the aisle, if you will, right? He is a guy that works with. While he was very much a basketball guy and still is a basketball guy, he's worked with football, so he's crossed sport aisles. I do think that obviously from a politics standpoint, he came from he was appointed as a student regent from a Republican governor. I don't think that there's been any hesitation from both sides to help him and to work with him during the legislative session recently when he was the interim athletic director before he got the full-time job, and he was able to help UNM secure probably a good, I think it's going to end up being about $36 million towards phase one of this football stadium renovation that they're doing. It's not going to be a rebuild or a new stadium. It's going to be a renovation. And it's a five-step program, a five-phase program. Phase one, they wanted to get to about $50 million. I think they got 36 secured, and I think they had another $8 million saved from last year. I think they're going to be at about exactly what they wanted to get to. And $36 million of that is from this past legislative session that he was spearheading the campaign for. He was up there working with lawmakers in Santa Fe. And I would tell you that there are some high-ranking heads of committees that are certainly left-leaning Democrats that work just as openly with him, and their love of athletics, frankly, overrode any sort of politics or political decisions made in the past by Ryan.
Okay. Sounds like as far as state government goes, his perception's going pretty well. How does his age impact a learning curve a little bit for whether through reality or perception nationally?
Yeah, perception-wise, I would say it's, I think, accepted now that a lot of the new athletic directors in college athletics right now are kind of in this, maybe 32 still on the low end, but there's a lot of 30s in there. There's a lot of late 30s. There's a lot of guys, a few women, probably still need to get a few more women in those positions if you ask me, but there are still a lot of athletic directors coming into these positions at multi-million-dollar athletic departments that don't have athletics backgrounds at all. There's a lot of openness to backgrounds and resumes not looking traditional or what we would consider traditional, where you've put in your 30 years in athletics administration. So I don't think age is as big a concern within the industry anymore. I don't think making sure you've done your 30 years at an athletic department is it. There are some network executives that are now taking over athletic departments because it's all about both fundraising and definitely getting the right media rights deal, and your TV deals have to be right because that's what funds these athletic departments.
Sure. Okay, we can move on to basketball now. Thank you. NIT semifinal loss to Tulsa, third place finish in the regular season in the Mountain West. How would you grade the Lobo basketball season this year with a new coach, big roster turnover?
I think grading a team has to be done from a starting point to a finish point, and it's hard to argue that with this Lobo team, all the circumstances that surrounded the team a year ago, new coach, entirely new coaching staff, entirely new roster. They had 2 student managers return. That's it. They didn't have a team trainer, a team doctor, the strength coach. Nobody returned from the previous staff except 2 absolutely great student managers, by the way. But I would tell you that based on that alone, the fact that they were playing on the last day of the regular season in the Mountain West for a share, not an outright, but a share of the Mountain West championship, They did lose in the semifinals of the Mountain West tournament to a San Diego State team that was right there all year in the mix. And then they make a run in the NIT to be in the Final Four of the NIT. I would tell you that it's hard to argue that that's not an A. I actually probably would give it maybe a B plus, maybe an A minus. I might be grading them a little hard because it's hard to argue that what they did with the players they brought in. There was no excitement around these new recruits a year ago. I think openly on social media, where you get all your positive feedback, there were some people pretty critical of the players coming in a year ago, right? Like who's this kid from San Diego, from Carlsbad, California, that was committed to UC San Diego that nobody else recruited? Why do we want a guy named Jake Hall? Like, what has he ever done? Well, a year later, it turns out that Eric Olin kind of knew what he was talking about, right?
Okay. Now, in this NIL world, transfer portal, it's hard to predict exactly trajectories of programs, I think, because of roster turnover. But what's your understanding of where this team is headed under Olin right
now? Sure. It's a year-by-year thing, first of all, anymore. It's hard to project a coach or a player anymore to be a 3-year project or a 4-year project. So I would tell you that going into next year, if we're just doing this year by year anymore, I would tell you that 1 year ago, when I sat in this chair a year ago and was telling you about this new coach and the players he was bringing in, the expectation wasn't extremely high. I would tell you that this year's team that he's already put together, and a couple more players that I think we'll be announcing very soon, certainly by the end of April, I would tell you that next year's team on paper is going to look better than this year's team was. Okay. In a diminished Mountain West, remember the Mountain West and the Pac-12 are now two conferences. The Mountain West split up, and 6 teams are now forming the new Pac-12. 5 teams, left to form the new Pac-12. The Mountain West is not going to be as strong a conference. I would tell you right now, New Mexico is going to be the favorite going in to win the Mountain West next year. And they should be. I think Nevada and UNLV are going to be very good. I think Grand Canyon and even Wyoming might be pretty good too. But New Mexico is going to be the favorite. And I would tell you too that this roster is going to be better than last year's roster. Can they come together and play as well? We don't know that anymore. Sure. But Eric Olin is still thought of very highly within the industry. And Jake Hall and some of the players on this roster are thought of pretty highly now.
Yeah. So Jake Hall sticking around, declined the opportunity to fully enter the transfer portal. Yep. What does that say about the status of the program? Maybe player respect for Olin, but why did he end up staying and turning down big money, big school offers?
There's a lot of storylines to that. First of all, he has been recruited by Eric Olin and Tom Tankelwitz, an assistant coach on the team, since he was 14 years old. Okay. And so they were on him pretty early in the San Diego, Southern California area. And they said, what you do is exactly what we want in our system, and just kind of kept telling him that through the years. He scored 3,000 points in high school and yet wasn't highly recruited except by them. Okay. He did have some other D1 offers, but lower level. And so there was that relationship. He had a great relationship. His family had a great relationship with the coaching staff. He also saw in the freshman year getting absolutely maximized. His skill set was exactly what Olin said. What you do is exactly what we want to showcase. So then he got to do that as a true freshman. The guy hit more three-pointers in college history than anybody but a guy named Antoine Davis, Steph Curry, and Trae Young. 2 of those guys are NBA superstars right now. And Jake Hall's 4th on the list of most three-pointers ever made by a freshman. Okay. He was maximized. So there was that. Dax Hall, his younger brother, 1 year younger than him, just won CIF San Diego Section Player of the Year. He's averaged 27 points a game. He's a point guard. He's not a shooting guard. But he's coming to UNM and was recruited, as Olin will emphasize, and a lot of people will tell you that know Dax Hall's game. He was recruited on his own merits. This isn't because he's Jake Hall's brother. He is good enough to be here himself, but that was a lure to kind of stick around. Jake Hall had to make a decision. I'm going to go back to UNM where I think we can win a championship next year. I get to play a year with my brother. And let's not totally overlook that he's getting paid just fine here too.
Sure, yeah, that's awesome. Well, anything else that we should be looking ahead towards in the upcoming basketball season or Lobo athletics in general?
I think Lobo fans were probably a little fatigued by it all last year. Going into this past season, probably weren't as excited early on. I think going into next season, they're going to have a lot more excitement from day one. Overall, the sports that we don't talk about normally, still doing great. cross country still winning national championships. You got a new women's basketball coach. You got a new soccer coach. A lot of sports are doing good things over there. They're actually the leader in the Learfield Directors Cup standings, which is basically a standings for athletic departments that rates all sports. They're the leader outside of the power conference structure.
Nice.
So they're not beating the Stanfords and the Dukes and the Texases,
Sure.
but they are absolutely the number one team in the entire country outside of that power conference structure for an overall athletic department for the second year in a row. Things are pretty good overall at UNM Athletics, but it is such a volatile kind of world in college athletics where you got a new athletic director, you got a new president coming in. A lot can change in a hurry, so kind of an interesting next year, I think, for Lobo Athletics.
For sure. All right, well, we'll be watching it. Jeff Grammer, thanks so much for being here.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah.